I used to brag that even if I divorced her, she'd come crawling back full of regret within 3 years. As it turned out, things moved much faster than I anticipated. The Miller Group faced constant turmoil, and I watched her transformation in the financial news from a cold, arrogant socialite to someone who looked utterly exhausted. Even that razor-sharp gaze she used to have in the boardroom had been dulled into something hesitant and cautious by the weight of reality. Now, during her twice-monthly visits with our son, she arrives an hour early and just sits in her car staring into space, taking that long to work up the nerve to ring my doorbell. She has no idea that while she was struggling, I spent those 3 years watching Ian grow up and seeing my company's value double. Every bit of heartache the past once caused me has been slowly paved over by the successes of my new life. I finally accepted a brutal truth. As hard as it was to lose her, it would be far more terrifying to trap myself back in a marriage where she constantly measured me against everyone else. My wife took my executive vice president office and handed the keys to a fresh hire. This guy, Felix, even had the nerve to post photos of the place all over his Instagram. He captioned it by saying how grateful he was to President Miriam Miller for her trust and mentorship. He promised to work his tail off to prove he was worth the opportunity. My assistant forwarded the screenshots to me. Looking at the photos, I saw he'd completely gutted the place. Every single one of my trophies and professional awards had been tossed out. I sent the screenshot straight to Miriam over iMessage. I asked her what the hell was going on. I wanted to know why an intern was sitting in my private office. Miriam sent back a voice note, sounding like she'd had a few drinks. She told me it was just an office, and that since I was out of commission, there was no harm in letting him use the space. I told her she had 10 minutes to put everything back exactly the way it was. Miriam Miller didn't bother to reply after that. 2 minutes later, I personally pulled the plug on the Miller Group's biggest pending contract. If she wanted to challenge my authority, I was more than happy to sink her entire company to make my point. Miriam started blowing up my phone. I let it ring until the 5th call before I finally picked up. She immediately started screaming at the top of her lungs. "Edward, have you lost your mind?" she yelled. "That project is worth $200 million. The product launch is next week. Killing this project now is corporate suicide. Are you really doing this over a stupid office? We've been married for 5 years, and this was the first time she had ever lost her temper with me over another man." I just took a slow sip of my whiskey. The cold liquid burned a path down my throat, leaving a hollow chill in my chest. "Miriam," I said calmly, "this isn't about the office. Put everything back exactly as it was, including every single one of my awards. Nothing missing, nothing moved. If you don't, the losses your company takes today will be the least of your worries." There was a long silence on her end of the line. "You have 5 minutes left," I told her coldly, and then I hung up. 2 minutes later, she sent over a series of photos showing my office restored. Everything had been moved back to its rightful place exactly as I'd had it. Once I verified the photos, I called the project lead immediately and told them the freeze on the Miller contract was lifted. Then I sent Miriam a photo of her own home office. I had cleared everything out, including that antique piece she loved so much. I also included the rare collectible she'd just won at an auction. The next photo I sent was of that same collectible shattered into 1,000 pieces on the floor. "Miriam, consider this your warning." I messaged her. "You know how I am. Don't let there be a next time." She didn't text back. I knew she was fuming, but my own anger ran much deeper. Our marriage had started as nothing more than a strategic merger between the Harrison and Miller families. 5 years ago, she needed the Harrison Group's international distribution network, and I needed the Miller Group's established domestic manufacturing plants. The marriage was a logical arrangement. There was no whirlwind romance, just a calculated partnership based on mutual benefit and shared interests. "Edward, we aren't just going to be business partners," Miriam Miller had said before our wedding, holding my hand with a look of absolute conviction. "I promise to give you my full trust and respect as your wife." "I appreciate your honesty, Miriam," I'd replied with a smile. "I look forward to a successful partnership." Over the next 5 years, we went from strangers to a couple who truly knew each other. We moved from mutual respect to actual dependence, and eventually a real sense of warmth and affection began to grow. On countless nights after long corporate galas, we just sit together side by side, enjoying the quiet. We shared so many private moments that belonged only to us. And this year, we finally had a child together. I saw our son as the ultimate proof of how strong our bond had become. He was the reason I believed our marriage was bulletproof. But then Felix showed up like a sledgehammer. His presence shattered the trust and understanding we had spent years building. Miriam didn't come home that night. I knew it was her way of showing me how pissed off she was. The next morning, I didn't care about my recovery. I ripped the bandages off my leg myself. I limped into the office on a leg that was nowhere near healed. I could see the shock in the employees' eyes when I walked through the lobby, but they all quickly looked down and offered their rehearsed greeting. meetings. Mr. Harrison, I thought you were still on medical leave, the young receptionist said, stepping forward with a look of genuine concern. Is everything all right? I have some business to handle personally, I replied with a stiff nod. I headed straight for the executive suites, but the moment the elevator doors slid open, the sound of laughter echoing from Miriam's office hit me. Through the crack in the door, I saw Felix sitting right next to her. Miriam was actually beaming at him. She looked nothing like the cold, professional executive I knew. Usually, I was the only person she ever let linger in her office, and she certainly never looked at staff members with that kind of warmth. But there she was, sitting so close to Felix that their shoulders were practically touching. There wasn't even an inch of space between them as they carried on their happy little conversation. Felix was decked out in a perfectly tailored bespoke suit. It was the exact same one I'd pointed out months ago, the one Miriam had promised to buy for me as a gift. It wasn't just expensive, it was one of only 5 made in the entire world. And yet, there it was draped over the shoulders of a lowly intern. I shoved the door open and walked in. The laughter died instantly, and the smile on Miriam's face turned to stone. What are you doing here? Miriam asked. Felix scrambled to his feet, putting on a mask of forced politeness as he greeted me with a shaky voice. Good morning, Mr. Vice President, he said. I heard you were still recovering from surgery. We didn't expect to see you in the office so soon. I let out a cold laugh. Who gave you the balls to talk about my business? I want to know which idiot was blind enough to hire a useless hack like you in the first place. Felix's fake smile vanished. He stammered, unable to find any words. Take off the suit, I commanded. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. Felix stared at me, his lips trembling in pure disbelief. He looked over at Miriam, his eyes begging her to intervene. I turned my gaze on Miriam, and it was as sharp as a blade. Explain to me, I said, why he's wearing the suit that was supposed to be mine. Miriam's brow furrowed with annoyance. People were gossiping about Felix after that scene you made yesterday, she said. I gave it to him as compensation. It's just a suit, Edward. I'll buy you a nicer one later. Compensation? I scoffed. The money is irrelevant. It's a limited edition piece, one of 5. Who does Felix think he is that he deserves to wear something like that? Furthermore, yesterday happened because he didn't know his place. He overstepped, and he got exactly what he deserved. And what about you, Miriam? Have you forgotten who I am? Who gave you the right to just hand out my belongings to the help? Felix's face went ghost white. I'm so sorry, Mr. Harrison, he stammered. I had no idea the suit was intended for you. You know now, take it off. I didn't give him an inch of breathing room. Miriam was clearly starting to lose her cool. Edward, stop being so dramatic, she snapped. We have a meeting to get to. Don't make a scene. My heart felt like lead. She had never raised her voice at me in the office before, but today she was breaking that rule just to protect Felix. Felix looked relieved now that Miriam was defending him. I narrowed my eyes. A meeting? For which project? The Thompson Group Partnership, Miriam said, adjusting her cuffs with a sharp, annoyed motion. Felix and I were just heading out to the meeting. Felix has been a huge help on this, so I'm bringing him along to meet the client. I raised an eyebrow and let out a dry, mocking laugh. Oh, really? Since when does an intern get to have a say in a multi-million-dollar corporate partnership? Miriam's face went dark. She grabbed her purse and nodded to Felix. Let's go. We're wasting time. As he followed her out, Felix glanced back at me with a smug, triumphant grin. Phoenix, medium, you chose this path. If you want to play favorites with him, don't expect any mercy from me. The second they were out of sight, I pulled out my phone. I dialed the private line for the chairman of the Thompson Group. Chairman Thompson, it's Edward Harrison. Regarding that deal Miriam is bringing to you today, an hour later, my phone screamed with a call from Miriam. She was so livid, she sounded like she was going to burst a blood vessel. Edward, what the hell is your problem? Chairman Thompson humiliated Felix right in front of the entire board. He called him a boy toy and said the only reason he was in the room was because he was sleeping his way to the top. Then he told everyone that the Miller Group only exists because you've been carrying us. He said that while you're home recovering from surgery, I'm out auditioning replacements. He called me ungrateful and shameless. You set this up, didn't you? I gave a dry chuckle. Miriam, I can't control what other people think. People have eyes. They see what's going on and draw their own conclusions. Felix was so humiliated he walked out in the middle of the meeting. The deal is dead. Is that what you wanted? Are you happy now? Satisfied? Absolutely. It's called getting what you deserve. I hung up, feeling the rage in my chest finally start to cool. A few minutes later, my assistant sent an iMessage. Word about Felix's disastrous meeting had already spread through the office like wildfire. The moment he walked back into his department, his coworkers started whispering and pointing. Some of them didn't even hide it, calling him a talentless hack who only knew how to manipulate his way into the boss's bed. Someone had already cleared his desk into a trash bin. He was screaming at them until he was hoarse, desperately trying to explain that he wasn't what they were saying. He kept shouting that they couldn't treat him like that, but nobody was listening. Nobody was going to stick their neck out for an intern and risk getting on the wrong side of the vice president. It's the corporate jungle. The moment they saw blood, everyone piled on to get their kicks in. I've seen 1,000 1,000 times. Felix was just reaping the whirlwind. He was an intern with zero talent and zero connections who thought a little attention from Miriam meant he could skip the line. It was pathetic, humiliated, and broken. Felix threw his resignation letter on the desk. He hadn't even finished his formal onboarding yet, so HR just signed off on it without a second thought. He had nobody to blame but himself. He tried to grab a position he hadn't earned and a woman he could never hope to keep. By the time Miriam finished smoothing things over with the Thompson Group and returned to the office, Felix was already gone. Her expression was murderous. When she got home that night, I was rocking our son to sleep. Ian has these soft, chubby cheeks, and he looks exactly like Miriam, right down to the shape of his nose. She stood in the doorway of a nursery, her face twisted with rage, though she kept her voice to a harsh whisper. Felix didn't do anything wrong, she hissed. He's just a hard-working kid, and now, thanks to you, he's jobless and his reputation is in the gutter. I know you like to throw your weight around, Edward, but this is too far. I just put a finger to my lips to quiet her. Then I carefully tucked our sleeping son into his crib. I let her out and shut the door before I spoke. Miriam, I'm going to say this once. I didn't order the staff to harass Felix or force him to quit. I tried to tell myself it didn't matter, but seeing the pure hatred and lack of trust in her eyes still felt like a physical blow to the chest. Look at yourself, I said. Think about how many rules you've broken for that kid. You encouraged him and pampered him until he actually thought he was on your level. There's nothing going on between Felix and me. Miriam snapped back, her voice shaking with emotion. Nothing. Then why did you give him my gifts? And why the hell was he sharing your office? Don't forget, you used to be so private you wouldn't even let a secretary bring an extra chair into your office for a 5-minute briefing. But with Felix, you broke every rule in your book. You were even willing to turn on your own husband for him. I stepped into her space, looking her dead in the eye. Miriam, I'll admit it. I fell for you. I wouldn't have married you otherwise. I certainly wouldn't have had a child with you. But you know exactly who I am. In my world, there's no room for compromise when it comes to loyalty. I don't tolerate betrayal, and I don't tolerate lies. If you cross that line, if you even start drifting emotionally towards someone else, I won't hesitate. I will find a new mother for my son. Miriam's face drained of color. She didn't say another word. She just turned and walked into the guest room. I knew how this usually went. She'd spend the night in the guest room to cool off, and tomorrow we'd pretend everything was fine and go back to business as usual. That's how we've kept this marriage together for 5 years. But this was different. Usually, we fought about business deals or family drama. This was the first time we'd fought about another person, and I knew deep down it would be the last. Early the next morning, Miriam's phone started ringing. Felix's name was flashing on the screen. She hesitated for a moment, but then she picked up. I could hear Felix sobbing through the speaker. Miriam, I don't know what to do. I'm so lost. Take a breath, Felix. What happened? Miriam asked, her voice softening. Everyone is attacking me online. My photos are all over Twitter and TikTok. They're calling me a boy toy and saying I slept my way into the job. I'm terrified to even leave my apartment, he whimpered. His voice was shaking, and I could hear him breaking down into fresh sobs. Miriam's expression shifted to pure rage. She looked at me, and I could see the fire in her eyes. Don't panic, Felix. Just stay inside and keep the door locked. I'm going to take care of this immediately. Felix made an enemy of me, and in our social circles, that's public knowledge. I didn't have to say a word. People looking to get on my good side were more than happy to do the dirty work for me. I checked the internet earlier that morning. It wasn't nearly as bad as he was making it out to be, but I had to give it to him. The victim act worked perfectly on Miriam's protective instincts. The second she hung up, her anger boiled over. She slammed her phone onto the table, her eyes red with fury as she glared at me. Edward, when is enough enough? He quit. He's out of our lives. Why are you still hounding him? How can you be so cruel? You're just hiding behind your status, bullying anyone you want just because you can. I slammed my coffee mug down just as hard. Miriam, for the last time, I didn't do this. Everyone knows you hate him. Who else would go to these lengths to destroy him? Miriam, have I ever once done something and lied to you about it? You're choosing to believe an intern over me. You've let him completely cloud your judgment. Miriam's face was like stone as she turned and walked out, slamming the door behind her so hard the walls shook. I took a breath and slowly wiped a drop of coffee from my lip. I watched the door she just slammed, feeling a profound sense of disappointment sink in. Later that afternoon, I was scrolling through Twitter when I noticed that all the negative threads about Felix had vanished. In their place was an official press release from the Miller Group. It stated that Felix was a highly valued employee with exceptional talent. The statement claimed he'd been hired solely on merit and that the company would not tolerate malicious gossip or online harassment. They even threatened legal action against anyone spreading rumors. Then a message from my assistant popped up. Sir, have you seen the Miller Group's latest move? Miriam didn't just put out a legal statement. She just announced that Felix is returning to the company immediately as her chief of staff. She's also put out a memo saying that anyone caught gossiping about him will be terminated on the on the spot. The whole office is whispering. They're saying there's no way the relationship between the CEO and Felix is just professional. My chest felt tight. Then, my assistant sent a screenshot of Felix's latest post on Facebook. The storm has passed, and truth always wins out, Felix had written. Hard work pays off. I'm so grateful to President Miller for believing in me. I look forward to giving my all to assist Miriam in her vision for the company. I won't let her down. He'd attached a photo of his new contract. It confirmed his title as Chief of Staff and listed a salary and benefits package equal to that of a vice president. I stared at that pathetic post before slamming my phone onto the desk. I was seeing red. A little while later, Miriam came home to pick up some files. She didn't even acknowledge my presence. She just walked past me and went upstairs to her study. I tapped my fingers against the coffee table and called out to her. Miriam, care to explain what you're doing? She stopped and looked back at me with eyes as cold as a winter morning. Felix is a good worker who got caught in your crosshairs for no reason. You destroyed his reputation and ruined his career. I'm just making things right. Felix deserves this. And what if I demand that you fire him? Go ahead and try, she said defiantly. I used to let you get away with your power trips because you're my husband, but I'm done watching you hurt innocent people. I'm finished with your games. I won't let Felix be another victim of your ego, and I won't let you control me anymore. Miriam walked out, and the sound of the front door slamming echoed through the house. In that moment, the last bit of respect I had for her vanished. We had 5 years of marriage built on mutual support, and yet, after knowing this guy for 2 weeks, she was willing to let it all fall apart. I sat on the sofa, shaking with a mix of fury and heartbreak. I squeezed the glass in my hand so hard it shattered, and I watched as blood began to drip onto the floor. I forced myself to breathe. If she was determined to take his side, then she'd have to deal with the consequences of making me her enemy. Miriam, you have no idea the price you're going to pay for this. I picked up my phone and called my personal attorney, Oscar. Oscar, I need you to draft a divorce settlement immediately. I want the asset division to be airtight. I'm not leaving a single cent on the table. Oscar sounded stunned. Mr. Harrison, are you sure about this? A divorce of this magnitude is a massive undertaking. I want it done now, I interrupted. I expect a draft on my desk in 3 days. Understood, he replied. And regarding Mrs. Miller, don't say a word to her. This is my move. After I hung up, I opened my laptop and started pulling up every single contract and joint venture between Harrison and Miller. I've spent 5 years giving the Miller Group every advantage and resource at my disposal. Now, I'm going to claw back every last bit of it. I sent out a direct order to our international headquarters. Effective immediately, suspend all joint operations and partnerships with the Miller Group. Inform all partners. I gave them the cover story. Technical restructuring. My team didn't ask questions. They just got to work. That's how the Harrison family has always operated. Total efficiency and absolute loyalty. Next, I ordered HR to pull all Harrison-funded tech teams out of the Miller Group. I told them to offer everyone double pay to come back to the home office immediately. My moves didn't go unnoticed. My father called me within the hour. I'm divorcing Miriam, Dad, I said before he could even speak. There was a pause. Are you sure about this, Edward? He asked. I've never been sure of anything in my life. Phoenix, I won't ask for details. Your mother and I trust your instincts. Just make sure you do it right. Harrisons don't hesitate. Over the next 48 hours, I systematically drained our joint interests. I moved every cent of my private capital into new accounts where Miriam couldn't touch them. She had no clue. Meanwhile, Felix was having the time of his life on Instagram. He was posting photos of himself at Miriam-sided events, showing off his new car, a new Rolex, and his high-rise office. Every post had some variation of blessed to be mentored by President Miller. I looked at it once and then blocked him. Trash like that isn't worth my time. I shifted my focus entirely to the launch of my new venture. My phone buzzed. It was Miriam. It's my father's birthday, she said coldly. He wants us at the estate. If you're going to be difficult, I'll just go alone. She sounded like she was talking to a stranger. I looked at the divorce papers sitting on my desk and smirked. I'll be there. It was time to put my cards on the table and end this. At 7 p.m., I pulled my Maybach through the gates of the Miller estate. The house was glowing with lights, and I could hear the sounds of a party drifting from the garden. Miriam's parents and a few relatives were at the entrance greeting people. They all looked surprised when they saw me step out of the car alone. Where's Miriam? Her father asked. I didn't blame them for being confused. In 5 years, we had never arrived at a family function separately. She's running late, I said. They ushered me inside with their usual politeness, and the butler brought me a drink. I sat on the sofa and took a slow sip of my drink, keeping my expression neutral. About 30 minutes later, the front door swung open and Miriam finally walked in. But the room went dead silent when everyone saw Felix walking in right behind her. Her father's face immediately darkened. Miriam, he said, his voice tight with anger. This is a family dinner. Why did you bring an outsider into our home? Dad, Felix is my chief of staff. We were just finishing up some work and came straight here. I didn't see the the harm in bringing him? This is a private dinner, not a board meeting, her father barked. Get him out of here. Felix looked like he was about to cry, giving Miriam his best kick puppy look. It worked on her instantly. She stepped forward to defend him. Dad, he's been working his tail off all day and hasn't even had a chance to eat. Just let him stay for dinner. Her father was livid. Edward is a busy man too, Miriam. Have you ever seen him drag his staff to a family function? This is a home, not a lounge. This is our family home. Butler, show this man to the door. The room was thick with tension. The butler looked caught in the middle, glancing nervously between Miriam and her father, unsure of what to do. Felix was hiding behind Miriam, but he kept shooting me these little smug, arrogant looks when no one else was watching. I'd had enough of the drama. Don't bother, I said, my voice cutting through the room. I reached into my jacket, pulled out a folder, and tossed it onto the coffee table. This is the only reason I'm here today. The words divorce settlement were clear at the top of the page. You could have heard a pin drop. Miriam turned white as a sheet. Her designer bag slipped from her hand and hit the floor with a thud. Edward, you're divorcing me? You've lost your mind. I looked from Miriam to Felix, then back to her. I've never been more sober in my life, I said. Her parents rushed over, trying to talk me down. Edward, let's just talk about this. There must be a misunderstanding. You can't make a decision like this on a whim. There's nothing left to say. My mind is made up. I won't sign it. Miriam shrieked, her eyes welling up with tears. You're divorcing me because of a job promotion for Felix? Miriam, I said, you know exactly why we're here. I looked her straight in the eyes. I warned you. I gave you every chance to fix this. But you know me, I don't do second chances. I made an exception for you because you were my wife, but you kept pushing me. If you want to throw away our marriage for some kid you can control, then don't expect me to be nice about it. The room devolved into chaos. Miriam was hysterical, refusing to touch the papers. Her mother grabbed my arm, begging me to reconsider. Edward, please, let's just sit down and discuss this calmly. Don't do something you'll regret. I pulled my arm away, polite but firm. I'm done, Mrs. Miller. There's no room for negotiation. You can sign those papers, or we can let the lawyers fight it out in court. I turned and walked out, leaving the wreckage of their family dinner behind me. I stood by the windows of my penthouse, looking out over the Chicago skyline. For the first time in years, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. My assistant came in and handed me a file. Mr. Harrison, another 30 senior managers from the Miller Group just applied for positions over here today. He couldn't hide his grin. That brings the total to 100 of their top talent. The Miller Group stock is in a free fall. It hit the floor today. Their stock has been plummeting for 5 days straight. It's a total bloodbath on the market. Without their core team, their major projects are stalling out. The word on the street is that the Miller Group is circling the drain and heading for bankruptcy. I nodded. I'd planned for this. Without the Harrison Group propping them up and our technical teams running their operations, the Miller Group was a sinking ship. They were just gasping for air at this point. Oh, and you'll love this, my assistant said, laughing. Apparently, Felix tried to act like a visionary at their last board meeting. He pushed for a massive pivot into high-tech RD. The project crashed and burned within 48 hours. Their whole operation is in chaos. I laughed. The kid has a degree in communications, and he thinks he can lead a tech division. He's completely out of his league. It was exactly what I expected. Felix was just a pretty face with zero talent and even less business sense. Miriam was the only person stupid enough to let her feelings cloud her judgment so badly that she'd hand the keys to her company to a fraud like him. My phone lit up again. Miriam Miller was calling for the 15th time today. I just blocked her number. I didn't want her excuses, and I definitely didn't want her apologies. I didn't give a damn about her life anymore. But word reached me that after their stock crashed and their projects were shuttered, she finally snapped. She finally came to her senses and fired Felix, but the damage was done. The Miller Group had lost half its market value and was a shadow of its former self. Later that day, security called my office. Mr. Harrison, Miriam Miller is in the lobby. She's refusing to leave until she speaks with you. Let her wait, I said. Just make sure she doesn't cause a scene. I hung up and went back to my work. She didn't seem to get it. It was over. My assistant messaged me later saying she'd stood outside for 2 hours before security finally made her leave. The next morning, her father showed up. I thought about it for a moment, then told my assistant to send him up. Her parents had always been good to me, and I respected them. When he walked in, he looked like he hadn't slept in a week. He didn't waste any time. Edward, I know Miriam messed up, but she's devastated, and she finally understands what she did. Can you find it in your heart to give her another chance? He was practically begging. Mr. Miller, I have a lot of respect for you, I said, but there's no coming back from this. I know she was wrong, but she's changed. I cut him off. Some lines you just don't cross. Once you walk out that door, you don't get to come back in. She fired Felix. She's miserable, he pleaded. Firing him doesn't change what she did, I replied. She didn't just disrespect me. She betrayed our entire relationship. I don't forgive that. There is no us anymore. If she doesn't sign those papers, I'll keep the pressure on the Miller Group until there's nothing left to bury. He looked defeated. I understand. I'll make sure she signs. I'm keeping Ian, I added, but your family is welcome to see him him whenever you like. I did feel bad for the old man, but not enough to change my mind. My principles were more important than her regrets. He gave a heavy sigh, nodded slowly, and walked out of the office looking every bit his age. 3 days later, the signed divorce papers were sitting on my desk. It was late when I finished my work and headed out. As I stepped out of the building, I saw a disheveled figure waiting by the entrance. Felix was being pinned against a wall by 2 of my security guards. His expensive suit was trashed and his hair was a disaster. The moment he saw me, he started screaming and thrashing around. "Edward, you did this to me. You destroyed my career. You took everything." I stayed back, looking at him with nothing but contempt. "Felix, you've got it twisted. You're out because you're a failure. Your business strategies were just garbage you copied from Reddit and YouTube. They were pathetic." His face went from red to white as I spoke. He looked like he wanted to kill me. "You only got that job because you manipulated Miriam's pity. You played the victim until she felt sorry for you, and then you hid behind her like a coward. The truth is, you're just a talentless boy toy who uses women to get ahead. You bullied the staff, lied to the board, and stole from the company. You thought you were untouchable because of her. Nobody called you out because you were a little pet. Isn't that right? You think you're on my level? You're just a kept man who traded his dignity for a paycheck. You're lower than trash. You look like a broken man. I'd hit him where it hurt. He suddenly broke free and lunged at me, screaming, 'Shut up, I'll kill you.' I didn't even flinch. The guards tackled him before he could touch me. I stepped forward and ground my heel into his head. If I ever see your face again, I will end you. Getting rid of you is easier than stepping on an ant. Pray we never cross paths again." He was hysterical, screaming curses at me until the guards muffled him and dragged him away into the night. That night, an anonymous Twitter account dropped a bombshell. They posted photos of Felix in his days working as an escort at a high-end private club. He was pictured looking pathetic and desperate, entertaining a group of wealthy women. Then came the security footage of him stealing from the club and iMessage logs of him scamming his college girlfriend overseas. It was all over the internet. I didn't even have to lift a finger. So many people wanted to get on my good side, but they were tripping over themselves to dig up dirt on me. Miriam's father made sure Felix was blacklisted from every major firm. He had nowhere left to run. Felix ended up right back where he started, working at that same club. Word is he fell ill after a month of hard living and passed away shortly after. My life, on the other hand, took off. I signed 3 massive deals in 6 months, and my company's stock price went through the roof. Forbes named me one of the most influential CEOs. Miriam, with her father's help, began the long process of trying to rebuild the Miller Group from the ground up. It's been a hard road for her. Whenever I see her on the news now, that fire she used to have is gone. She just looks tired and worn down. 3 years have flown by. My company is now the industry leader, and as a successful single man with a massive network, I've become quite the eligible bachelor. But my focus is entirely on my work and my son. I haven't really thought about dating. Ian is 4 now, and he's such a bright, happy kid. When he smiles, I feel like I'm looking at a mirror of myself. Since the divorce, he's been my priority. I make sure to drop him off at school every morning and pick him up every afternoon. I even have a corner in my office filled with his toys and drawings so he can hang out with me while I work. "Daddy, when is Mommy coming over?" Ian asked one day, looking up at me with those hopeful eyes. I checked my phone. "Your birthday is the day after tomorrow, but I'm sure she'll be here with a big present for you." Per our agreement, Miriam gets to see him twice a month for 3 hours a day. She hasn't missed a single visit in 3 years. No matter what she's going on, she's always there right on the dot. She always brings elaborate gifts. Try her best to make up for the time she lost with me. I'm still bitter about what she did, but for Ian's sake, I would never try to cut her out of his life. Miriam has managed to stabilize the Miller Group over the last few years. It's nowhere near what it used to be, but at least they're out of the red. We run into each other at business galas sometimes. We're polite, we nod, but we don't talk. For Ian's 4th birthday, I threw a small party at the house with a few of his friends and his nanny. The doorbell rang that afternoon. I opened it to find Miriam standing there, holding a massive gift-wrapped box. "Ian," she said softly. I took the box and gave her a nod. "I'll be back in 3 hours. Be ready to go then." She nodded, and as I walked away, I could feel her eyes on me, full of a longing she couldn't quite hide. Over the last 3 years, she's dropped plenty of hints about wanting to try it. When we're at events, she'll bring up old memories and talk about the good old days. After her visits with Ian, she always lingers, trying to start a conversation just to keep me talking for a few minutes. I've even had mutual friends tell me that she's still in love with me and want a fresh start. I've shut down every one of those things. Some things are just too broken to ever be fixed. My life now is great. My business is thriving. I have an amazing son, and I'm actually happy. It's a hell of a lot better than the life I had. I have a sense of freedom and peace that I never thought possible. People ask me why I was so cold, why I walked away without looking back. The truth is, you realize that a relationship doesn't always end because of an affair. It ends the moment your partner stops treating you like you're the only person who matters to them. Once they start comparing you to other people and testing your limits to see what they can get away with, the love is already dead. The dignity is gone. If you've ever been treated like you were replaceable, don't you dare think because you aren't. My choice to walk away wasn't powerful because I wanted to. It was powerful because I accepted a hard but necessary truth. Real strength isn't waiting for an apology. It's reaching a point in your life where the person who broke your heart isn't even worth a second thought. Stop trying to fix something that only causes you pain, and stop waiting for someone who never saw you. We shouldn't be protecting a broken past. We should be protecting the person we become, someone who is finally whole and refuses to be small for anyone else. I hope you find the strength to walk away and the courage to never look back.